Long ago, a child by the name of Frisk fell down into the underground. They were gifted with the special power of reset, which allowed them to save and rewind to any point of their journey, even after death. However, the child was careless, and soon the overuse of their reset ability caused multiple splits in the time stream, creating many alternate timelines. Some where the child saved every monster in the underground, and some where they killed them all. However, there were some timelines where the child never entered the underground in the first place. Instead, in two separate timelines, two other teenagers fell down into the underground. A young writer wearing glasses and a school uniform named Toko Fukawa, and another wearing bandages and a hoodie by the name of Issac Foster, aka Zack. After falling down, the two began to explore this unknown area. Soon they were face to face with a friendly flower by the name of Flowey. However, it wasn't long before their innocent smile turned into an evil grin, when they began to bombard the two with hordes of projectiles. Both were able to evade the majority of them before they'd had enough. Toko pulled out an electrical stun gun and immediately zapped herself with it, turning her into Genocide Jack, and Zack pulled out his large scythe. Both immediately pushed back against the flower, slashing through all their attacks with ease, causing Flowey to retreat. With their murderous intent running wild, no friends to help or soften them up, and no reset to save them, which of these two crazed serial killers will be able to better make it through the genocide one of Undertale? Or, at the very least, who can make it further? Let's see. Why hello there! Is it me you're hoping to see? You called to me so I appear. Larry Wood here, debating on behalf of the ultimate murderous fiend herself, Genocide Jack, or Jill, or Sayo, or whatever the heck you want to call her, and discuss why I believe she would have a much better time going through the genocide one of Undertale. I mean, she literally has genocide in the name, so this is pretty open and shut already. But if that isn't enough to convince you, I still have plenty of points to spare. For starters, when comparing their experience, both generally have a large kill count to their names, but Genocide Jack easily has far more experience dealing with unnatural things than Zack does. The most we see with Zack's kill count is a kid who likes to dig graves, a sadistic woman who likes to punish criminals, and a crazed doctor with a weird fixation with eyes. While definitely some weird encounters, it's nothing too insane compared to the real magical monsters. The only one in this series I would call supernatural is Abraham, as we do see him being able to alter reality a bit with his weird smoke and be able to summon ghosts and monsters. But in that instance, it was only really Miss Rachel Gardner that had to go through all his trials, ghosts, and creatures, not Zack, as he was too busy bleeding out. So that takes away Zack's only possible experience facing unnatural foes. While on the flip side, Jill is known for being capable of fighting hordes of Monokuma drones, which include bombers, junk Monokumas, destroyers, beasts, a colossal Big Bang Monokuma, and Ball. So Genocide Jack is shown to already have plenty of experience fighting off different types of foes, each with varying powers. She's even faced multiple types of robot mech suits piloted by the Warriors of Hope to help add on to her wide experience. So with her experience dealing with multiple types of grunts, weird Gundam-like mech suits, and just dealing with the wacky abilities of Monokuma, this shows that Jill will be much better off facing the magical abilities of the Undertale cast, while Zack's more grounded experience will cause him to get caught off guard much more often. Besides good experience and adaptability, another thing you need when going through the underground is the ability to dodge. One of the main game mechanics of Undertale is having to dodge various types of magical projectiles, like fire, bones, spears, bubbles, lightning, etc. I see Jill being much more skilled in this regard. She's shown many times to be capable of darting around at high speeds, being stated to be able to jump several meters into the air much higher than the average human, even once jumping onto a speeding monorail, so I definitely see her hopping around any attacks that come her way. Genocide Jack is shown to be a master of evasion, as in Danganronpa F, she was capable of dodging numerous strikes from the likes of Sakura Ogami, aka the ultimate martial artist. Not only does it show that Jill is incredible at avoiding oncoming attacks, but being able to keep up with Sakura, someone who was stated to have won over 400 martial arts matches, and was capable of keeping up with Mukuro, the ultimate soldier, who has gotten through many battles unscathed, shows that Jill can be very skilled in combat. Obviously she isn't as skilled as Sakura, as it was stated that in a normal fight Sakura could easily overwhelm Jill, but being able to at least keep up with her shows that Genocide Jack will do much better against the more trained monsters in the underground, like the Royal Guard, Undyne, or Asgore. Another point I would like to bring up actually has nothing to do with either fighting or killing. That's right, puzzles! There are plenty of different puzzles and traps littered throughout the underground, mostly in the ruins, Snowden, and Hotlands. This is actually really dire for Zack, as he is terrible with puzzles. I mean, he himself states that he's dumb as bricks. This was the main reason he made that deal with Rachel in the first place, to help him solve all the trials on each floor, but unfortunately for him, she's not here to help him out this time. Sure, Jill and Toko may not be geniuses, but I still see them being more than capable of solving the tests. In Ultra Despair Goals, there are multiple rooms that require you to use strategy in order to complete the room's objective, like having to kill all the drones in one explosion or having to sneak through without getting caught. Both Komaru and Toko are capable of solving all these rooms in no time, so I definitely see Toko being able to solve the puzzles throughout the underground, while I unironically think that Zack is going to be a bit stuck at the ruins puzzles. Jill would also be capable of going to the Genocide Ward much faster than Zack could, as she has access to methods to allow her to kill off multiple targets at once in the form of fever modes. These are special finisher moves that can catch a good amount of targets. She can slice them into multiple pieces within an instant, make a bunch of scissors to rain from above, and can even summon a spirit bomb of scissors to blast away her opponents. Speaking of multiple opponents, Jill has more experience facing multiple opponents at once, as again she's been shown to be capable of fighting off hordes of Monokuma drones with little effort, while at most all we've seen Zack fight are 1v1s against other Wound Masters. In Undertale, you can sometimes get ambushed by multiple targets at once. Zack will struggle trying to dodge the projectiles from multiple different angles, while Genocide Jack will be in a much better position as he's used to enemies coming from all sides. So sorry for killing off your chance for victory, Mr. Drake, but in the words of Genocide Jack, it's easier to kill than to try not to. And I believe with Jill's greater experience, adaptability, evasion, and AoE, she'll blaze through all the poor defenseless monsters in her way. But then again, I have no right to try and take a chance to fight back, so I'll move things over to you. Satisfaction!
ここから一緒に出ようね。
お前は満ちた顔しやがったな。でも今は絶望だ。
Well, well, well. Seems I'm here again. 'Tis I, the Huntsman. Larry, you may believe your victory is assured, but that's where you're wrong. Because Zack is going to show you who the real monster is. You brought up experience, which I'll certainly admit Jack has dealt with more. Martial artists and killer bear robots are certainly more than Zack has dealt with, sure, but at the end of the day, it's not like every monster they're fighting in the underground is as threatening. As long as they're happy and smiling, Zack will see them as nothing more than something to be sent to the depths of despair with a knife. Speaking of knives, actually, Zack in general has better weaponry. Sure, Jack's incredibly talented with scissors, but a knife, and more importantly a scythe, outclasses a pair of scissors any day. If anything, Zack is more willing to use whatever weapons he finds in the underground. Things like the worn dagger and real knife are right up his alley, whereas Genocide Jack would only use their scissors. The only other things I recall her ever using were a taser on herself and hitting someone with a bottle that one time. I see Zack being more willing to expand his killing arsenal, as he's done with a pickaxe before. Even when asked why a quintessential weapon wouldn't be better in Toko's hands, she just turns it down out of an allergy to machines. That's just kinda sad. Zack knows his weapons. If he knows the scythe can't do the job, he actively looks for something else. Bringing me to the puzzle side of things. Zack may be an idiot, but that's mostly just because he's uneducated. It's not like he's totally useless in a setting like this. He's remembered specific details about rooms, searched for hidden switches, jumped his way over a pit of spikes, and found important clues. Yes, Rachel was the one who would do most of the thinking and puzzle solving, but at the end of the day, she only made it so far because of Zack's assistant. And, to the same point, Jack needed Komaru for their strategies to work efficiently. In fact, most of the rooms they had to go through couldn't have been done without Komaru's Bart Simpson megaphone gun, requiring specific types of ammunition to activate certain mechanisms to move on. They even say you could just clear the levels with Jack no problem, but then that's not even strategizing, that's just slaughtering all enemies in the room and moving on. Sure, Jack's better than Zack at this from a glance, but I'm also more compelled to think that the intelligence lies more on Toko's side than Jack. But she can't fight like that, and stopping repeatedly to bring Jack out for self-defense just seems incredibly tedious, especially with the fact that turning into Jack has a troublesome time limit. Think about that. One side can't defend themselves while the other is more violence-prone and only lasts a short while. Not the best situation to be in. Jack can revert back to Toko randomly mid-sentence, highly inconvenient if she happens to be up against a dangerous monster. Actually, it's debatable if Jack would even try to kill a monster in the first place. Sure, she kills Monokuma robots, but she sees that as just breaking some oversized toys. Genocide Jack has a, well, let's just say very specific demographic.
Yep, I only cut up the guys who get me going in the southern hemisphere, if you catch my drift.
Not to say there isn't a chance of her branching out for this, but unless she's deep into the dark sides of DeviantArt, I don't think any monsters in the underground would be on her radar. Unless you really want to go out on a limb with Mettaton, but again, that'd be more akin to a Monokuma robot. With nothing to really push a murderous agenda, staying with Toriel is just going to be a very enticing safe option. Zack, on the other hand, kills indiscriminately. No one is safe from his bloodlust, be it children or adults, innocent or guilty. He's even fought abnormally large snakes before, so most of the monsters in the underground won't be an issue. They aren't nearly as intimidating or fearsome. Some are, like Undyne, but not nearly as competent or deadly. You can expect Papyrus to be long dead before he can make any traps or puzzles for Zack to traverse. Sans won't be an issue until the very end. Maybe an annoyance, but we all know Sans is just going to watch everyone die before trying to stop Zack. Zack's also got endurance on his side. Yeah, you mentioned Rachel doing most of the work while Zack was bleeding out, but recall everything that happened leading up to that moment. Zack has chased Rachel around while destroying obstacles in his way, stabs an insane doctor through the chest, smashing through a glass wall, smashing through a small graveyard's worth of tombstone, smashing through a brick wall, chasing a kid killer in the dark, stabbing said kid and crushing him with a large tombstone, evading machine gun fire, around 5 minutes on an electric chair, and kept going strong in a room filling with poison gas for a period of time. All of that before taking a short nap. His pain tolerance and stamina far exceeds Genocide Jack's time limits. With food that replenishes health existing in the underground, Zack will be able to go longer without it and keep up his murder spree through the pain. Even after being repeatedly shot and tearing himself open with his own scythe, all it took was a short break before he was able to stand and use his weapon. Sure, he had to downgrade to a knife since he was too tired to lift his scythe, but he still held back a small horde of snakes, even one-shotting one larger than Rachel. In the end, while Genocide Jack is certainly capable, she's nothing compared to a monster. For a monster does not go down easy. Zack will take this win with a smile on his face, because when it comes to killing, one scythe fits all.
You're stupid! That's what makes you so angry!
You're the one who's getting all worked up because you've got such a raging hard-on for dead bodies!
Now you're getting nasty!
That's what your mom said!
Just be quiet!
Shut the hell up!
Man, so annoying. All the lip service talk that I hate, so very irritating. In all fairness though, you brought us some really good points for your so-called monster, but this isn't the first time Jill had to overcome some crazed weirdo obsessed with despair, so I'll make like Genocide Jack and cut right to the chase. It is true that Genocide Jack prefers to make pretty boys fall for her scissors, but that alone isn't enough to get rid of the idea that she'd be willing to kill the monsters of the underground. It's not like she's just gonna sit back and let herself get killed. How battles usually start in Undertale is that the monsters ambush and attack you first, and I highly doubt that Jill would be patient enough to learn all the acts you have to do to spare every single one of them peacefully. So anytime a monster comes to attack her, they'll most likely get sliced up like wet mochi. She's not here to make friends. Plus there have been some moments where Jill has been willing to cut up people that weren't guys before anyways. One time she attacked Asahina when they both got into an argument, and she was a girl. And of course there was that other time where she smashed Sakura's face in with a bottle. So if it's for self-defense, Jill is willing to fight no matter what gender they are. Sure, she may not like tainting her precious scissors with women's blood, but that won't be an issue here, as the monsters in Undertale don't bleed at all, they just turn into dust. The only time we ever seen a monster bleed is Sans, but that could easily just be chalked up as ketchup, since he likes to drink this stuff. And since Jill is perfectly fine with covering her scissors with the ashes of exploding Monokuma drones, I'm pretty sure she'll be fine with her scissors getting a bit dusty. Speaking of scissors, I admit if I had a gun to my head and had to pick one as a weapon, I would most definitely choose the scythe over the scissors. You know, I couldn't even begin to understand how to handle one, but as the saying goes, it's not the weapon that makes the man. While they may just be scissors in a normal person's hands, in Jill's hands, they are incredibly deadly weapons that she's very versatile with. She's capable of slicing people to bits in a matter of seconds, can pin people against walls, can use the scissors like throwing knives, make them rain down from above, give deadly haircuts, and oh yeah, throw a freaking spirit bomb at people. Not to mention the fact that she's basically got an endless supply of them to throw around, pretty much pulling them out of thin air, while Zack only has one knife and one scythe. meaning that if he somehow loses those, he'll be in a much worse spot than Jill would, since she can just pull out a fresh pair of scissors whenever she pleases. As for Genocide Jack's supposed time limit, there are numerous ways around this. Toko doesn't need to be Genocide Jack 100% of the time, only when she needs to fight off any monsters that try to attack her. And since you yourself say that the normal grunts aren't too threatening, it shouldn't take too long for Jill to slice them up, then turn herself back into Toko so she can recharge the gun. Plus, Genocide Jack only has a time limit whenever she's activated using the stun gun. If she is activated with something like sneezing, she can actually be around for as long as she likes, so long as she doesn't sneeze again. And there have been moments where Toko has been able to sneeze on command to turn into Jack, like in the final trial of the first Danganronpa game. Same goes for Jill being able to sneeze back into Toko. You could say that Genocide Jack could accidentally sneeze and turn back into Toko, thus making her defenseless, but Toko isn't as defenseless as you think. She still has access to the stun gun, which can be used offensively, as she has used it to save Kumaru by zapping away any Monkumas that try to finish her off, and has even been capable of stunning Big Bang Monokuma for a bit. So if Toko is ever attacked, all she has to do is zap the monsters to buy her enough time to change back into Jill. You see that their experience may not be as big as a factor here, since most monsters are grunts that can be handled rather easily, but you aren't taking into account all the other boss level monsters that could easily give Jill and Zack a hard time, like Toya and Asgore, who have led the underground for hundreds of years, the highly trained members of the Royal Guard, and heck, even Papyrus isn't as much of a pushover as you think, since even Undyne herself stated that he was really tough, and of course Undyne herself, who is probably the strongest and most skilled out of all of them. And again, thanks to Jill's experience in being able to keep up with already skilled fighters like Sakura, I see her being the more likely one to handle people like Undyne. In fact, her strategy with fighting more skilled female fighters is one I actually see working really well against Undyne. Jill seems to focus more on evasion rather than direct combat when facing stronger opponents, such as when she focused on dodging Sakura's strikes. She can do that with Undyne as well, as in the pacifist one, we see that it's possible to outrun her and lead her somewhere where she's more vulnerable like the Hotlands. Zack on the other hand is the one I see taking the more headstrong approach and just facing her head on, which is probably the worst way to fight her given how determined she is. Heck, even in a neutral one, we see that she's capable of surviving even after her HP reaches 0. And don't even get me started on her undying form. At that point, I'm pretty sure Zack stands no chance. It's just like you said, Hunter, monsters are hard to kill. Moving on, I still think the puzzle of the underground will still be too much for Zack to overcome. Sure, he has helped out with some of the puzzles, but that was, again, because Rachel was there to tell him how to help. She was the one who told him what to place in the dollhouse in the anime, was the one who told him to stand on the button in the water, and so on. Not to mention the fact that some of the puzzles require you to read signs in order to know what to do and how to solve them, which is bad for Zack since he's illiterate. Unlike Toko, who can read just fine. I mean, as the ultimate writing prodigy, I sure hope she can. Speaking of, yes, the puzzle rooms in Ultra Despair Girls were only possible with the hacking gun. So, the tools that are needed to solve the puzzles may be different in the two games, but that doesn't stop the fact that it requires you to think outside the box in order to solve them, much like in Undertale. And yes, while it was mostly Kumaru who solved the puzzles, both Kumaru and Toko have shown to have pretty similar levels of intelligence, so there's no reason to assume that Toko couldn't have either. Heck, she even gives you hints on how to solve some of the puzzles, showing that Toko wasn't just letting Kumaru carry them through that like Rachel had to for Zack. Ultimately, I just don't think anyone in the underground could kill Genocide Jack. She survives massive explosions, not once, not twice, but 3 times. She's noticeably much more hyperactive and cartoony when compared to Zack, who, while is pretty resilient, has much more human limitations given how simple stab wounds can greatly weaken her. So it seems like your perfect little angel just can't compete with the Cinderella of the Slaughter Flower Garden. While Zack is definitely no pushover, I believe his more human limits, headstrong nature, and low intelligence will ultimately be his undoing. So you better stop playing it cool, Hunter, if you don't want to end up getting killed. But hey, that doesn't mean you're done already, right? Right? Isn't that right?
An honest mistake, I suppose.
Idiot! It's no mistake. What I share with her isn't just knowledge. She and I also share emotions. If we didn't, there's no way we'd both love Master. And my emotions are telling me this. To kill you and let Dekomaru escape. And you're something of a pretty boy yourself, so I can kill you as I like. No remorse.
Okay, sure, just bring up good points. I don't mind. Not at all. It's fine. It's fine. Of course, Jack has fought in self-defense. Or so you say. In fact, let me review said part of the game, Jack attacked Asahina. Yes, they find that Jack cut her. They had an argument leading to, oh, look at this! Pepper! Getting knocked off the table. Jack only appears to attack Asahina because of a convenient series of events causing her to sneeze. And Jack didn't even start attacking because of self-defense. She attacked Asahina because of her chest. That seems to be a sore spot for her against people sometimes. And to my knowledge, no monsters in the underground come to mind that could ever trigger that. And if there is, I really do not want to know. Sakura had her head bashed with a bottle twice that time by two separate people, and died to poison, not blunt force. She wasn't even trying hard to defend herself. Even in Jack's boss fight in Despair Girls, the most damage she did against Komaru was slash away parts of her clothes. Yeah, she definitely can kill monsters, but I see it being quite difficult for Jack to abandon their usual requirements that easily. Sure, all enemy monsters would probably make Toko bring Jack out, but it's also a fact not all monsters are inherently hostile. It could be easy for her to confuse enemies with more NPC-like monsters, and especially the ones in the ruins. Most of them are unthreatening and look like stuffed toys, unlikely to set off any flags. Plus, it's not like she'll be able to know monsters turn to dust when killed. Some may look more mechanical and artificial, but others don't. They all even have personalities and habits you can't just give to any old robot. Then there are ones just not hostile at all and wouldn't warrant her attacking. Speaking of which, Toriel. Remember, Toko's now lost in an unknown place. A voice of sincerity like Toriel could end up convincing Toko just to stay in the ruins and never progress. More so than Zack, at least. Toriel genuinely doesn't want to kill the player, which could at least make Toko reconsider trying to move on, while Zack would simply abuse that weakness immediately to take her down. Even if he fights and loses to her at first, she would likely carry him through most puzzles to her home and try to change him for the better. Of course, only to be killed when her guard's down. It's not like the ruin puzzles are so difficult anyway. Spikes blocking his way? Jack has smashed through walls and iron bars before. Spikes shouldn't be too hard. Even if he can't, he's dealt with spike-based obstacles and has proven himself a competent jumper. And he's dealt with water before, so what's really stopping him from just stepping into the water and going around the spikes to begin with? As for falling floors, Zack has been shown to have incredibly good instincts. Even if he doesn't remember the path, which he probably could, he should at least be able to tell where the floor is unstable. Not to mention, whenever he makes it outside, he'll meet Sans and Papyrus. He's most definitely not going to listen to Sans, and would more than likely decapitate Papyrus on sight. As we all know, Sans only ever does anything in the final corridor, so he won't be protecting Papyrus at all. With Papyrus dead, Zack won't have a worry in the world for any traps he would have set up. Zack being illiterate is a big disadvantage, but he can at least remember things like floor numbers. He should at least be able to put together incredibly simple things like forcing a rock onto a switch. Even when he didn't have Rachel's help, Zack could still notice things that seemed important, like finding keys to hidden doors and locked chests and matching plates to doors in order to open them. Zack should also be fine when it comes to avoiding traps and projectiles. If Rachel is capable of dodging bullets, Zack sure as hell can. Heck, he even avoided a close-range shot from Rachel's gun in the game. Undertale projectiles never appear moving at that speed, even with their fire or lightning. And it goes without saying that electric-based attacks won't do that much to begin with, seeing as Zack can shrug off an electric chair and bathtub shocks without much issue. And actually, he has survived a close-range explosion when this one oven went off, and all it did was knock him over for a second and piss him off. Rachel set up traps meant to take Zack down, from the aforementioned shock, oven, rooms getting crushed, a giant rolling rock, angry dogs, falling floors, or angry fish. The brains of their duo, who knew him so well, couldn't come up with a solid way to get rid of him. You can tell she was serious by the way she shot Danny, who had Zack's head at gunpoint, saying Zack was hers to kill. If Zack can evade calculated attacks, there's really no doubt he could dodge monster projectiles that more so go in a general direction without proper aim. And sure, he may at first try facing Undyne head-on, but Zack has shown a few times where he's willing to escape or at least play it smart. Be it running from a boulder he couldn't break, a room about to crush him, or a collapsing stairway, or even a room filled with toxic gases. They may be few, but Zack can learn from his mistakes and find alternative solutions. Not to mention, Zack only sustained lethal damage when he was blinded by liquid insanity. He got shot and voluntarily tore himself open. Took him out of it, sure, but after a short rest he was capable of fighting off a bunch of snakes. Then after being patched up with medicine and bandages, under no logic at all, he was almost instantly back in action. And I mean immediately. A nap and some band-aids, and he's ready to fight off dogs, evade arrows, knock over tables, run away from a rolling boulder, avoid close-range gunfire, move a church organ, smash through building debris during a fire, leap over large gaps. The list goes on. Back to Jack. Sure, Toko has the stun gun. Sure, she could knock back some Monokuma units when they were distracted trying to kill Komaru. She needed bait to actually land a hit with it. I doubt some high tier is going to allow themselves to get tased like that. A couple fodder monsters, sure, but not someone like Undyne. And in terms of stamina and durability, sure, Jack may be fine, but Toko definitely isn't. Not only is she defenseless, she actually feels fatigue. Zack has only ever shown fatigue or pain when brutally injured, and even then has pushed past it. Heck, the only time I've seen him stop to rest is when Rachel had to. And the only time we see him eat is this one slice of pizza that was so hot he destroyed a table. Zack can go a lot longer, especially when injured. Meanwhile, Toko has no backup. It's a disadvantage because of the easy overuse of Jack. Sure, she has other methods to change, but the most immediate and easy way is through her stun gun, which apparently has the potential to completely fry her brain if used too much. I doubt it's easy to find some way to make yourself sneeze in a surprise encounter. There's no emergency pepper lying around Snowden. With no Komaru there to help her, Toko won't have many opportunities to rest between stun shots, meaning if Jack's already sounded the alarm, any window for a strong monster like the Royal Guard to take her out would be detrimental to her. Then of course you need to address the stun gun's limited battery, which has to be replenished with items found in Monokuma machines activated by Komaru's gun. Finding another source from assorted machinery in the underground could work, especially Alphys's lab, but it's not common. And get this, she lost against someone using a projectile weapon. Done, I win. I'm kidding. But it does stand to reason that Jack all of a sudden stopping to hit herself with a stun gun again would just make her an easy target. She takes her sweet time recharging, making it more than easy for a monster to just bombard her with magic. Sure, Komaru's gun wasn't meant to affect people and was mainly targeting the stun gun itself, but she still had ample time to carefully aim while Jack recharged. Someone like Mettaton, Undyne, or of course the skeletal funny man himself, Sans, would take advantage of that. Jack has more special attacks. Okay, sure. How about that meter she has to build up each time in order to use them? She can't exactly just spam the scissor bomb constantly. Even if she could, wasting it on something like a Frogget or Temmie is just going to eventually bring down stamina even more. And for the bigger robots and Ultra Despair Girls, they needed Komaru above all else to hit their weak spots to beat them. Not so much Genocide Jack's raw power. So much for the LBX wannabes. They were even controlled by unstable children. They had very clear weak spots, which were especially weak to Komaru's gun, which tampered with electronics. Jack certainly helped in most fights, but at the end of the day it was Komaru contributing more. Meanwhile, Zack operated solo since he was just a kid. Zack should be able to better handle himself in the long run, while Toko can't constantly turn herself into Jack without running the risk of hurting herself or making herself even more vulnerable. In the end, while Jack may be a better fighter than Zack, Zack isn't held down by a split personality or a restrictive MO. He might not be as good at mental puzzles, but is more than capable of a bare minimum and has great athleticism to get past them. He can arguably go longer without getting tired, and can still function enough to fight when greatly wounded. And to keep myself from rambling any longer, I shall take my Wait a minute. In the true ending of Ultra Despair Girls, Toko admits to being scared of ghosts. Meaning Nabstablook is the gatekeeper. Let's go! Now cry, scream, and beg for your life. Show me the despair on your faces as I steal Larry's victory.
You think I'm Mr. Freaking Perfect? I'm a cold-blooded serial killer! I've killed more people than I can count just cause it's fun! But unlike you and Four Eyes, I don't waste my time thinking about pointless shit like that! I don't give a rat's ass about parents or God! Nobody controls me! If anyone tried to, I'd kill him! I decide what I want to do and then I freaking do it! End of story!
Phew, boy was that fun. Oh, that was crazy.
Now, if only I could think of a good line. Funny how researching psycho killers from video games can drain some sense of comedy.
Alright, you get the deal by now. Head down to the comment section below and take a stab at who you think will come out on top in the underground. And be sure to come back for part 2, because trust me, you'll love it to death.
And I'd tell you all to have a knife day, but I'd rather cut to the chase and leave. I knew I'd have one, I just needed a minute. Don't forget to join the Multiverses server, and be sure to check out me and Larry's channels linked below. And until next time,